Well, college football is officially over. TCU took a bludgeoning. I said 7 points, but just maybe not where. We're going to talk about which ACC schools could have potentially given us a better college football playoff national championship game, as well as two men's basketball matchups that we feel like are going to help sway the conference in a good or bad way. We're going to talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. I'm your host, Candace Cooper. Thanks so much for joining me today, each and every day. You can find us here wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 1,000. We can only get there by your help spreading the good news. Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack is here to join the show to talk all things ACC. We got a lot to go over on today's show. More importantly, we feel like we've been left out as a conference and as a unit. Maybe we could have given a better college football playoff national championship game. We'll talk about it on today's show, as well as some men's basketball matchups. Kenton, how are you feeling?
I just feel I'm in disbelief. I have never in my life seen such a thing happen in a national championship game, which is supposed to be displaying the two best teams in the nation. I am in shock and awe.
And, we've seen some tough national championship games, but never to this magnitude. If you didn't get an opportunity to watch Monday night, TCU face Georgia, but it was a 65-7 upset. I shouldn't say upset. What's the word I'm looking for? Bludgeoning.
Beat down.
It was upsetting to have to sit through the majority of that because you just felt like maybe TCU would make it a game when you thought about preview, right? Previewing it, you said, at least just stay in the fight. They're not going to win it, but at least there's going to be a fight. And it felt like from start to finish, it was just all Bulldogs all the time. It showed how good the SEC is or how unprepared TCU was.
I would just like to know who told y'all this game was going to be close. Vegas had this thing at 13 and a half points for a reason. And what did I tell y'all before the episode before this? I said, hammer at. Take it. Ain't no way they cover. Ain't no way. Again, Slim to none, and Slim got his top hat on and told my crew, let's go. Now, if you grew up in a African-American house, when the parent or whoever's driving you says, my crew, let's go, you got about 2 minutes to be in that car, you're getting left. Okay? So, and Lord forbid, if they don't want to leave you and they got to come get you up out your cousin room or something like that, it's not going to be a fun time. And, very clear that TCU hopes got left. But, it's a great season for them and more power to them because they who expected them to be here, right?
Sure. And I think if you think about just in terms of the Power 5 conferences, the ACC is certainly not one that gets mentioned of the same caliber from the football perspective for a bit of while, beyond Clemson, right? You talk about Big Ten, you talk about SEC, it feels like they're a step above. Their teams are a cut above the rest. And yet you have this Big 12 coming in here, trying to figure things out, trying to make a name for themselves. Small old TCU. Sonny Dykes doing his thing, but it wasn't even close. It just felt like, you knew you shouldn't have been there, but all you could do is play the team in front of you. Georgia could only dominate the person in front of them. TCU, if you wanted to be the team, Michigan, you should have played the game correctly. Ohio State, you should have put yourself in a better position to maybe be a different seed so you can have a different conversation, right? And I sit there and say all these teams that we're not even mentioning yet about our conference is I still not tip my hat to TCU for even being in the fight because maybe they had no business being there, but they played the game. A lot of people ain't never been in a national championship will never be in a national championship.
I'll say this. Anybody who says the ACC doesn't belong and isn't in that same caliber, the college football playoff has been going on since 2014. Of all the conferences, in terms of who has the most national championships, the SEC is obviously number one with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With 6 after tonight. They're number one with 6. And number 2 is the ACC. So you can say
how many? 2?
2 with 2. and then the Big Ten has one. So you can say what you want about, well, this conference is or is not. You can say what you want about the ACC. And even if you want to make the argument, well, that's Clemson, that's not the ACC, well, that's fine. But then we could say for the Big Ten, that's Ohio State. That's not the Big Ten. Like, outside of Ohio State, who has been good? Outside of Ohio State, Michigan, who has been good consistently in the Big Ten? Michigan State kept telling us Tuck coming. But guess what? Tuck is going to court with his players because they are facing some felonies. Purdue got the brakes beat off of them, and that was your Big Ten West champion. The team that just got demolished, guess what? They beat the Big Ten champion this year. So what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, to me, if you say, well, you know, there's just so much terribleness in the ACC, and, you know, the Coastal is terrible, and the Big Ten West ain't. The Big Ten West thing. You tell me what you see out of that Big Ten West. Again, any conference or not conference, any division that Purdue, the Boilermakers, have a chance to win, don't talk to me about. Don't do that. Don't.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Georgia put up a basketball score in a national championship game, which is insane. But I think that speaks to what the SEC is, right? There's been so many good teams, so many good players. So it's the best of the best. Maybe when the College Football Playoff Committee is looking at these sorts of things, do you feel like TCU deserved to be in this national championship game? Let's start there.
Do I feel like they deserve to be there? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the folks who were in front of them. Absolutely. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Here's a very interesting fact about this, because a lot of people will not believe me when I say this, but I promise you it's the truth. I'm not making this up. Candace, can you tell me what the final score to this game was again?
65-7.
65-7. The Georgia Bulldogs basketball team is averaging 69.8 on the year. So when you say basketball score, you're not lying. Now, when you say, does TCU deserve to be there? Yeah. At the end of the day, they showed up. They beat the teams they were supposed to beat. Yeah. Michigan got cute. They ran Philly specials on the goal line, despite the fact they had an offensive line that won the Offensive Line of the Year award. And Michigan thought that because they showed up as Michigan, they were going to dominate and punch TCU in the mouth. And this is what we got as a result of that. Congratulations.
If I'm Michigan, I'm kicking myself. If I'm Alabama, I'm kicking myself. You know, I think that I would be sick right now if I was Ohio State, just watching. Like, we saw the national championship game in the semifinal.
Absolutely.
I would be super upset at myself. But those are none of the teams that I want to talk about today. The ACC has a few heavy hitters that I can argue, or maybe we'll argue here today, that probably could have made their case had things gone a little bit better, or maybe maybe if the AC was positioned a little better from a national landscape.
I'll tell you this: if we were to play the what if game,
we love what if game.
There are multiple what ifs that would make this thing entirely different. The biggest and most obvious one: if DJ panned out to be the quarterback that everybody thought he was coming out of high school, there is not a doubt in my mind.
And for those who don't need reference, DJ Uyunglele, the QB1 for Clemson until he got benched and Cade Klubnik went in.
If he panned out to be what he was supposed to be, if the running back Shipley had not torn his ACL and you know, wasn't coming off of an ACL surgery, because you could see it at times, the explosiveness just wasn't quite there. He was just kind of working his way back. If those two things don't happen, combined with what their defense was this year, I have no doubt that they're there. I'll throw another one.
So I would say Clemson is a team that you think could be in there, but how much is Dabo Swinney kicking himself for not benching DJ sooner and putting Cade Klubnik in? Is it a different season if DJ doesn't play the whole time?
I don't think
so. Or as long as he did.
I don't think so. I don't think that Cade was good enough. I don't think Cade was good enough to, hey, there's a certain amount of reps you'll take that will get you out of this. And also, this wasn't about, when I say DJ panning out to be the quarterback that he was supposed to be, I believe he was a 5-star out of high school. With that being said, if you're playing like a 5-star, that means you are not being good. You're not being like, oh, I'm kind of like moving the needle a little for my team. No, like you're a Heisman candidate. You're a Davey O'Brien Award candidate.
In his defense, he did play. He did show flashes.
And so if we expound upon what he did, you know, which I warned everybody it was fool's gold because most of those were dump offs to ETN, who is now in the NFL and who is the ACC's all-time leading rusher. But let's just say you extrapolate those stats. You take them down, boil them all together, and say, okay, extrapolate that over a 14-game season. He played the way he did against Notre Dame, and what was the other team he played against when Trevor Lawrence had COVID? It was Notre Dame and who else?
Don't get me to lie. I thought it was only Notre Dame.
Okay, well, he played 2 games. It was Notre Dame and one other team, and he looked really, really good, put up hundreds of yards, touchdowns, all that good stuff, no interception or 1 interception, I believe. If you took those stats, boiled them down, threw them out, and said, all right, he's going to play like this over the course of an entire year, this is a very different season for him. And again, this isn't about – I don't think the Clemson skill positions were like world beaters this year. But again, that's why you recruit a 5-star quarterback. That's why you recruit a 5-star at any position, really, because you're not just supposed to be good enough to win your battle. If you're a 5-star, you're supposed to change the math. And what do I mean by change the math? The math in football is you got 1 blocker, 1 defender. And if you're a math changer, be it on defense or on offense, you redefine those numbers. For cornerbacks and safeties, it's well, the ball when it's in the air, it's a 50-50 ball. Really, because of the rules and the way they work, kind of 60-40 to the offense. If you're a 5-star, you're a math changer. That 50-50 ball just became 70-30 your way because you're a math changer. That's who you are. If you're a math changing quarterback, you have to change those numbers from, well, Bo Collins looks good. He doesn't look great. Ngata looks good. He doesn't look great. Shipley looks good. He doesn't look great. Those tight ends they did look great at times this year. You take all those pieces, you combine that with what your defense is doing because their defense was still very good. That front 7, I mean, Jeremiah Trotter's boy is a baller. The other linebacker, we thought that Skowski and company were really good linebackers until those 2 showed up. That was like, oh my God. The front 7 is what they were. The defensive backs struggled a little bit, but at the end of the day, if you're winning, you can kind of mask that. If DJ plays like a 5-star, that team – I have no doubt in my mind. Not only are they there, they definitely give a better game than what we saw out of TCU.
1,000%. We're going to talk a little bit more about other potential matchups that would have been a better serve for college football playoffs, national championship game. But first, I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today for a box of the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-box pack of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run in and grab the 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter and churro. Trust me, you will thank me later. We're rocking and rolling with Kenton Gibbs of Locked On Wolfpack. He's scrolling through his Twitter as we can hear, trying to check the scores. 65-7 was the final for Georgia and TCU, and we're talking through what could have been had the ACC shown up. Sure, Clemson was in contention, but more important than that, I still think there are other teams that it could have been in the college football playoff conversation had they turned things around. And I'm just going to say it because I don't want you to be a homer. God, what could have been for NC State?
I mean,
what could have been?
I'll tell you this, and I'm going to give you a fun fact that most people would not believe, but I want you to go look this up if you don't believe me, and if you think, oh, there goes Kenton being an NC State guy again. Going into bowl season, there were 3 teams in the entire FBS that had not allowed 30 points or over 30 points in a single game. There were 3 teams. There was Georgia, Michigan, and NC State. Leaving bowl season, there is only 1 team in the nation this year that did not allow over 30 points in any game. It's NC State. If Devin Leary doesn't get hurt and he plays up to his potential, there's enough. And I'm not even saying like, oh, if he plays like what we thought, if we literally see a repeat of what Devin put up last year, if the offense is good, not great, good, that team probably goes to playoffs. That
1,000%.
team that team has a great shot at it because you look at this team and you would say, well, your only loss would probably be coming to Clemson. And even then, I mean, if you watch that Clemson game, and this is another part of it, obviously, that part of Devin Leary, being who he was and all that, would also be not having Tim Beck as your offensive coordinator. And I know some people are going to be like, well, Beck was the offensive coordinator when he put up huge numbers. Yeah, but they were a really, really wildly talented offense.
I'm just curious about why Thayer Thomas got missing, or like why he was underutilized.
Again, it's the magic of Tim Beck. I tell people all the time that Tim Beck must be the greatest salesman the world has ever seen, because I don't know how he keeps, he's doing his best Cliff Kingsbury impression that every time he fails forward. He gets a bigger job. He gets a bigger check, because I don't see how you watch a team put up 21 points against a Boston College team that was giving up an average of 30 points per game in conference. You could only score 20 points against them, and the team looks at you and says, that's my head coach. That's my guy. I want him.
Yeah. And I also think, yeah, sure. And I also think Devin Leary's health certainly played a factor. But when you talk about the running backs and just how dominant Bam Knight was and Ricky Persons Jr. were for NC State, it's a big difference maker. I will say, from a positive side, when you talk about all-encompassing, you look at the whole squad, Chris Dunn being a very big, important piece, right? There have been years past where he was missing kicks, and it was vital to, wins and losses. But him figuring it out, it just sucks that at the quarterback, probably one of the most important positions, it fell apart for NC State. And this definitely is going to be the year of what could have been to me.
Absolutely. And to return the favor to you, to return the kindness to you, I'll say this. I'm not saying that they would have belonged in the playoff, but I know they would have gave him a better game than here. Drake May and company, if Josh Downs is playing and healthy and all that good stuff, and what we say, it's tough to see.
No.
It's tough to see.
That Georgia defense,
7 points.
That Georgia defense would have embarrassed that up front.
You don't think they would have put up more than 7 points? I'm not saying that they would have gave them. I'm not saying it would have been a close game. I'm not saying that they would have covered the spread either if the spread was 13.5. I'm not saying that. I'm saying they would have given them a closer game. And listen, and let me say this: 65-7. And let me say this for the listeners of Locked On. I want to make this very clear. I am not, nor will I ever be, one of those people that's like, man, what could have came? What would have happened if it's even a relatively remotely it's a football game? But this reminds me of a quote. I can't remember where I heard it from, but there were two characters in this movie talking, and one character says to the other, are you implying to me that you want war? And the other character, whose army was much stronger, who knew that they were going to overpower them and decimate them at the snap of a finger, said, war? Oh no. War implies that both sides have something like an equal chance of winning. This was not a football game. This was a slaughter. This was an embarrassment. This was a coronation of sorts, but it's hard to call this a football game. And so when I look and say, who would have gave Georgia a better football game? I want to let you in on another secret. Samford only lost to them by 33 points. Vanderbilt did a better job of covering than what TCU did here. So, I mean, it's really hard for me to say, oh, yeah, I couldn't imagine any team in the ACC besides the top 2 to 3, besides Wake Forest, besides NC State, besides Clemson, besides UNC, besides Pitt doing a better job, because we've seen it.
Now, Pitt would not have done what? Come on.
Listen.
With Keaton Slovis. Now, come on now. Now you're being dramatic.
I'll tell you.
I think the team that you were leaving out of this whole conversation is Florida State. I think Jordan Travis would have given them a better run. I think Jared Verse and company and Fabian Lovett, I think that defense would have done really well. And it honestly makes me excited for next season, because the committee has got to have better conversations about the ACC.
But here's the other thing that I need people to understand, because I've had this talk with multiple people while the game was going on live, and I'm going to keep banging on the table for this. Each year is its own year. And It's not necessarily fair to put the sins of the past onto these teams. And also, that effect only hurts teams that don't have a lot of brand recognition. Because
where was Cincinnati, right? They weren't even in. Not to say they didn't have the quite nearly the same season, right? But the only team that I feels like gets that brand pass is Notre Dame. That's the
Oh,
only
absolutely
team that gets a brand pass every year.
Oklahoma was a team that if you judge off the sins of the past, they would have never got back in. Never. They went in that playoff, and each time
But I think they got a historical brand pass.
And that's what I'm saying. They did. You said Notre Dame was the only one. Oklahoma got it too, because if you look at Oklahoma in terms of what they had done, people can talk about TCU all they want, because this was one of the most embarrassing showings that we've seen in playoff history.
Not one of the most.
Okay,
Not
the
one
most
of
embarrassing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But with that being said, guess what? TCU also has another claim to fame. They're the first ever Big 12 team to win a playoff game. They're the first ever one to do it. So you can say, hey, the Kyler Murray teams would have did better. Baker Mayfield teams would have did better. Guess what? Neither one of those teams won a ball game when they got to playoffs. Max Duggan can say something that Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield.
How did TCU get here? Michigan, you should be killing yours. I don't get it.
Again, when you see, and I can't remember who made the song, but don't forget who brought you to the dance. Don't forget who brought you to the dance. If you came with the person that got a little bit of a lazy eye, and their face don't got all the symmetry, but they love you, they take care of you, they make sure you got everything you need, they look out for you, they treat you, they may be a little awkward, they may not have all the best drip, all the best fashion sense, they may not be the charismatic or have the W Riz, as the kids say these days, they may not have that, but they the person who brought you to the dance. That's where you have your success at. Now, when you start veering from that, because you sitting back in the party, you say, oh, she a little prettier. Oh, he a little bigger, a little stronger. He look a little better. Oh, she a little thicker, whatever, a little thinner, whatever you like. They a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. That's when you get in trouble. And Michigan got in trouble because they said, we can run this halfback dive that we've been running all year. We can run this inside zone. We can run this power that we've been running all year. Or we can run a Philly special at the 2. Ooh. Or we could go a quick huddle and run a fullback dive, which we have not done that often this year. Ooh.
Sure. So when it's all said and done, out of all the ACC teams, how many would have given a better performance for you out of the 13?
Very seriously, out of 14, I think at least 8, at least 7 or 8.
Are we counting Notre Dame?
I mean, if you throw in Notre Dame, I'd have to make that number jump up to 9, 8 or 9. I'd have to say so, because honestly, again, I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. This was Georgia's biggest win of the year in terms of point spread. This was their largest one.
Oh, sure.
The previous largest was against Vanderbilt. It was against Vanderbilt. Like, we're not talking about, and this is no disrespect to Georgia, this Georgia team at times this year kind of seemed like they were like saving something. Like, it was like,
they were saving it for this. They were saving their 65 for this. What you mean? They knew. Just get me to the dance, and I figured out. So there's that. But we're going to table this conversation because they do have some basketball we want to touch on before we get out of here. Georgia Tech will face off against Notre Dame at 7 p.m. on ACC Network. 2 teams that are looking for a win. Almost desperate, damn near. They're trying to stay above 500 or even get to 500. I think that, when it's all said and done, I give Georgia Tech the nod, but Notre Dame, maybe the coaching will increase. Lazewski and company will figure out a way, and it'll be finally a dub for the Fighting Irish. Finally.
Josh Pastner and company are not going to let that happen. I think that this is a game that Georgia Tech pulls away late. I think this is a close game, but I think down the stretch, bad teams find ways to lose games, and I think that Lazewski and company will find a way to blow it.
Well, it's -5 right now in favor of Notre Dame, so maybe Vegas has something we don't know.
Vegas thought they knew something today, talking about a 14-point spread, which is why I told y'all. Sometimes Vegas like to give away money.
Okay? Yeah, that's for sure. No, go ahead.
2 years ago, they had NC State's under-over on wins at like 4 or something like that, and I told everybody who would listen, Vegas is giving you money, and they went on to win 8 games that year. I'm just telling you, every now and then Vegas does that thing where they're like, I mean, if you look for it, I'll give you some free money. And this is one of those.
Fair enough. Fair enough. North Carolina will face off against Virginia. Virginia currently -4.5 on the evening. They'll play at 9 o'clock on ESPN. The number 13 Virginia team looking to keep the momentum rolling. North Carolina looking to get another conference win. This is going to be the battle of the vets, guys who've returned for a reason, feeling like they have tunnel vision. Baycott and the boys, Kihei Clark being the floor general. I think it's probably going to be one of the best games of the season, only because of how bad North Carolina beat Virginia last year. It was a big pop in the mouth, and I feel like that lick back, Beekman and the boys want that lick back.
Here's my thing about this UVA team. I was surprised as well by how badly they were beaten last year by UNC, because, like you talked about, they have a good team, but not only do they have a good team, they have what instinctively counters what Baycott does. They have an extreme amount of size, but he just dominated down there. Not only him, all of the guys. If you wore a baby blue jersey that day, you were going to have your way with Virginia underneath, and they just did not have a way to stop folks. They didn't have a way to do anything meaningful in terms of crashing the boards, in terms of keeping guys out of the paint, which is just it's so surprising to me, because again, this is a Virginia team that Virginia, if they ain't gonna bring nothing to you, they're gonna bring you some height, they're gonna bring you some size. So to see that that certain guys that they had just kind of didn't show up. You got 7-footers on the roster, and they're just kind of in the paint, getting pushed around, getting bullied. It was embarrassing.
100%. Shedrick, I think, is going to be a big factor going into tomorrow evening. But more important than that, I'm just looking for North Carolina to go into Charlottesville, come out with a road win, and really solidify that they are a team that's trying to get back into the top 25. They are a team that everyone had at the beginning of the season being number one. And they figured the thing out. Like, it's getting old to be, head scratching losses and trying to fight and claw your way into the NCAA tournament when, again, you were so prominent or spoken so highly of to start the season. So that's my 2 cents. Go ahead.
They had everybody drinking the Kool-Aid off of what they did in the postseason.
Drunk off the Kool-Aid.
Drunk in love off the Kool-Aid. Hey, listen, let me tell you something. Beyonce hit him with the "We Be All Night" because everybody was drunk in love off that. Oh, look at that. Oh, they're bringing everybody back. Oh, they got all the – they are who they are. Last year, they were what? A bubble team that got in, or not even a bubble team that got in. They were a team that was on the bubble to some people outside the bubble that got into the ACC tournament and went to the championship. And then they went ahead and went to the national championship by beating team after team after team in the tournament. Hey, more power to them. But – in the words of Jay-Z, you can try to change, but that's just the top layer. Homie, you was who you was when you got here. And, this team is who they were.
And I think Beekman arguably should have been Defensive Player of the Year last year for Virginia. And again, the revenge energy, the wanting to be that team that people look after and be like, don't sleep on, because we still have a national championship contending, level coach. We still have a national championship level team. I think it's going to be very telling for this game to be like a spot check, a gut check for both sides about where they are, especially in terms of veteran leadership. But we'll leave you guys with this. It is a long season for basketball still, but it's been a fun football season, right? It's been a great opportunity for a lot of our teams to really go into next year and figure out how they get themselves in college football playoffs so we can actually be, getting all the views, the likes, the comments, because the ACC is going to be back. So that's what I'm hoping for, if nothing else, is that we get some ACC teams kind of breaking away and really rolling, because it's kind of boring to be on the outside looking in. It can't hold you.
So let me ask you this, okay? And I'm gonna throw a tough one at you. Sonny Dykes was in his first year at TCU, playing with a quarterback who lost the quarterback competition in camp, which means new quarterback, new coach. He found a way to get to the playoff. If there's any team that's probably going to have that combination next year in the ACC, that finds their way into a playoff or into having a surprise year, not even maybe into the playoffs, just into a surprise year, which team would it be for you?
NC State. MJ Morris. I think if he can have a good camp, I think they're going to go a lot further than people think. I think they've lost a lot on defense, but I also think they're going to have a lot better season than people think. Now, if North Carolina grows the hell up, I'm talking about UNC Chapel Hill, and you give another year for Drake May, you understand what he's getting. You also have a new offensive coordinator. That defense has to figure it the F out. Cedric Gray was one of the best linebackers in the country.
You just went ahead and broke every rule. I said first year coach, new quarterback.
Mac Brown is always in the first year to me. Every year is a new year for Mac. Well, I know I broke the rule. I'm telling you, as a homer, I feel like North Carolina can do it. But here we are. Who's the first year coach?
I don't know. I honestly
Who's
don't.
Who's going to be a first year? There's not a first year coach.
Georgia Tech is going to have a first year coach, aren't they? I mean,
what kind of criteria did they even give you of the notion that they're going to be a better team?
What gave anybody the notion about TCU that they were going to be this? They were picked to finish fifth in the Big 12.
Your hottest take of the Georgia Tech is going to be a national championship team.
No, I'm not saying that they're going to be a national championship team. I'm just saying there are multiple teams in this conference that are going to have new coaches and new quarterbacks. Look at Louisville.
Only Georgia Tech is having a new coach in Louisville.
Louisville's probably going to have a new coach and new quarterback as well.
Georgia Tech. All right, hot take. Louisville's going to be a good team.
Hey, they got some ball players down there now.
Hot take. We love to see it. Guys, come back tomorrow as we talk through some of the women's matchups. We'll preview that and reflect on some of the Tuesday games from the fellas. It is my birthday. I am going to be, out of commission. So if you want to hit me up on YouTube, talk a little bit of craziness, listen, I just block and keep my blessings. I am so grateful to be part of this show. And thank you guys for always following and listening and subscribing. The biggest birthday gift you can give me is subscribing to the channel. That would make me so happy. So happy. For Candace Cooper and Kenton Gibbs, though, until next time.